Hello, and welcome to the first formal episode of Show Pester Quest, which I guess is a podcast, unlike my other series, which is not a podcast spelled left bracket, capital S, right bracket. This one is, in fact, a podcast. So that literally means it just has less to it. It just has less visuals. It's the same kind of content as I do. If you've watched my SockCon live stream, if you've watched my live streams of like the Hive Swap games, then this should be pretty similar. And I'm just gonna. This is just sort of a train of thought talk about Homestuck, I guess. I'm just gonna talk about things. For this first episode, it's just gonna be me, which is the. We'll see if I can keep up an hour of talking by myself. And in the future, I might invite some guests on. You can join my Discord if you want to be a guest, baby. Before we begin, I'd like to give a huge special thanks to Cyberkinetist, who is our one and only sponsor at the time. If you'd like to join him, you can go to sponsors.org/u/lunatucker. I'll put a link in the description. And, yeah. I'm not gonna paywall any Homestuck related content. Don't worry. There might be some behind the scenes stuff. I post my work files, but why are we doing the plug at the beginning of the show? What are we doing? What am I thinking? Have I learned nothing? You gotta, no. Let's start over here. I am Luna Tucker. Let's assume you've never heard of me because I'm kind of a big deal, you know? No, I'm not. I'm really not. I run Homestuck.info, which is a fan website and Twitter account that talks about Homestuck. In the past, it was kind of an informal, just like a news feed I kept track of. I should really start at the beginning. Should I start the very beginning? You know what? Yeah, let's start at the very, very, very beginning. In 1997, okay, no, not that beginning. In 2009, Homestuck came out and I didn't hear of it. And that kind of happened for a few years. There was a few years of me not hearing about it. And then finally in 2012, Lydia Llama, who was known for Adventure Time animations, Marshall Time, she decided that she didn't want to make Adventure Time content anymore. She liked Homestuck far more. This car cat guy was the new thing. This Kit Kat from Homestruck, this was the hot new stuff. And I was like, interesting, but no, probably not. It looks a little weird. There's this weird little devil guy. He's got candy cane. He's called Kit Kat. Not feeling it. Just not feeling it. And the next year, 2013, I went to WonderCon in Anaheim, and I saw groups of troll cosplayers. And I was like, oh, they look fun. They look like a little fun family. Look at them. They've all got like the same skin, the same horns. It's like a little alien family. I want to be in that. How do I be in that? Oh, I just have to read this 10,000 page comic. No big deal. And then on 4/13, it was on April 13th, 2013, I started reading Homestuck. And I caught up by May 13th. And my first live update was Homosuck, which, as anyone should know, is a beautiful first update. You gotta start with the deconstruction. You know how it is. I devoured this comic in a month. I couldn't stop reading it. It was the craziest thing I'd ever seen. It's like succubus. I think it like immediately affected me. It was an immediate change, like to my brain chemistry. I read Homestuck and I was like, whoa, I like weird narratives. I like stuff that applies to my modern day life. Like, this is a story where they're playing video games. Oh my god, I like these alien trolls. I like the informal language. It's like real people my age talking. I think I'm gay. Yeah, Homestuck was a big awakening for me. I came out as transgender and gay quickly after reading Homestuck. Dirk did things to me, and I came out as transgender at Comic-Con, San Diego Comic-Con, one of the busiest places imaginable in the whole world, the middle of the show floor, at the We Love Fine booth, who now goes by for fans by fans, but the We Love Fine booth, and I asked for a Jade Harley Eclectica dress. And yeah, it's a pretty big moment. I also met Hussey at Shifty Look, where he was announcing Namco High. See what I mean? This is kind of train of thought. This is still me describing my introduction to Homestuck, but there's a few really good tangents here. I could do an entire hour just talking about Shifty Look with Namco High. There's some weird stuff behind that. There's all of Ryan North's comics he did for that. Like, it's some interesting stuff. So let's save that. I wanna keep things chill today. This one's gonna be probably a bit shorter, probably a bit closer. So the years go by, and Homestuck is like the most important thing in my life. It's really all I think about, all I talked about, and I met all my friends through it. I've met my current boyfriend through a Gary's Mod Homestuck server. It's a Gary's Mod, if you don't know, is a mod for Half-Life that allows online multiplayer with the physics engine, which of course has a billion mods for it, including Baby Fondling's Homestuck model pack and Cad's John Egbert house, which is where I met my boyfriend I met my boyfriend at John Egbert's house. So years pass, and Homestuck's all I talk about, and it kind of takes over my life, sometimes in bad ways. I have had quite the history that I won't get into on the show, but everyone has their discourse. It's a lot of discourse in the fandom. Homestuck ends in 2016. In quotation marks in 2016 with Act 7 in the credits. And it's still kind of there in my life. There's nothing to it. There's very little content. There was the troll call at the time, which compared to nowadays with the friend sims isn't as much content. When Homestuck.com happened, that's kind of when my shift happened, and I became a little well known, I guess. I didn't ask for this. I created a Google Doc that tracked the changes to Homestuck.com that Viz had made. That's all it was, a Google Doc. But I got a little out of hand, because I'm thorough. I do a lot of data mining, I do a lot of online investigating journalism, and I'm very thorough in my note-taking. So the Viz changes to Homestuck.com Google Doc got very, very long, and no one could read it, because it was too long and too laggy, so I made a website. I typed up some HTML and some CSS and made a Web 1.0 website, just very basic static website. And people were really impressed. I was amazed. I'm like, oh, I could do this. I could make this a thing. So Homestuck.info became like a brand that I shove my stuff under, because I do other stuff. I do 3D art, I do game programming, I have Suburb Online, if you've heard of that, you can check that out. And the Google Doc became a website, which became an umbrella for everything I do. And now you're here listening to a podcast, which is, I've come so far. Sorry, I'm very proud of myself. I have anxiety, and I have I have a lot of things to work through, and stuff like this, I feel like I'm coming out of my shell, even if no one's gonna listen. It's just, I love Homestuck, you know? I love Homestuck! We're gonna talk about Homestuck, I guess. I intended this introductory episode to be just an introduction, and to talk about me, but I am apparently very efficient at talking about myself. And I've knocked it down in about 10 minutes here. I think you guys feel caught up, right? Ready for the quiz? Okay, here's the quiz. Question 1. When I was 4, I had a Barbie birthday party. So should I just dive into a topic? Oh my god, podcasting! Podcasting is quite something, huh? They make this stuff look easy when they just talk. The McElroys make this stuff look so easy. Right, I'm going to talk about a random Homestuck topic, so you can see a little bit about how that kind of thing works. Let's talk about Roxy. I look down, I see my mouse pad, I see Roxy Lalonde looking flirtatiously at me, And I'm like, yeah, let's talk about Roxy. We're talking about Roxy. We're talking about Roxy. I've been dying to talk about Roxy. I have a lot of close friends who see Roxy like I do as a trans woman. And I think that's an important topic to get into. And I think that's been a lot of discourse in the fandom lately. So in the Homestuck epilogue, Roxy came out as having thoughts of being transgender female to male, or at least non-binary. It's still something she's working through too. And in differently ways in different universes. You know how it is. And I have some very close friends who really identified with Roxy, and for that simple fact alone, they don't want to read the whole epilogue. And I can understand. When you apply yourself to a character that closely, then it's kind of a problem if they do something that you wouldn't. And it doesn't have to be like a kin thing. It can just be like a life choice. And Roxy turning out to be born female is a problem for people who didn't see her that way. There were definitely hints in the comic at her being transgender. This wasn't something out of left field. I had talked about it at great length before. And I think what's important to take away is more of so the message that they were trying to get across by making her female to male. Okay. So Roxy is a fictional character. And at this point in time, she had not had such an identity placed onto her. It's very weird talking about fictional characters like this, because she hasn't always been transgender. Like when Andrew Hussey drew a sketch of her and put her in a comic panel, she wasn't transgender at that exact moment. This is something retroactive. Even if the author intends it at the moment of their conception, it's still a bit retroactive, because we only have the words that are on the paper. And I think this was a very bold choice, because the writers of the epilogue could have gone either way with this. But I think it's what's important is her character arc. I mean, that not so much her character arc as in the hardships she's going through, but more so of what those hardships, the effect they're supposed to have on the reader. When authors create an intent, they kind of have to guess what the reader's going to feel, because everyone's going to read the intent of a book differently. Roxy's intended character arc, the intended response you're supposed to have, is to feel I don't think you're supposed to be supportive of her. That's a horrible thing to say, but it's so purposefully left field. It's so purposefully against what the common headcanon was. And that's not to say that the writers were in any way malicious. They're not. They're just, they have a story they want to tell, and I think it's great. I personally like that this was a bold move to make, because Roxy's story arc is about acceptance. It's about coming out as transgender really late in life and having to deal with people that knew you a really long time, and how they would react to having to change how they think of you. It's a retroactive rethinking of the character. If you knew Roxy for 30, if you were married to Roxy for 30 years, like John was, and then she says she's been thinking about becoming a man the whole time, it's a big retroactive weight. I think they wanted the entire fandom to be able to feel that themselves, because Roxy is a character that's been around, not for 30 years, but for what? 8 years? 8 years now. And people, they don't know her personally, they don't physically with her, but they also have their own defined ways of what they think of her. They know in their mind what she's like. She has to very carefully explain to them what she's actually like on the inside, and how that's retroactively going to change the way we looked at her the last 8 years. I think the side of the fandom that already saw her as transgender was still meant to feel that emotion. That's a key part of her character arc, to feel the emotion of having to rewrite what you think of her. And making her transgender the other way around, it means that even the people who were ready to accept her for who she was, who had already decided she was this person, still have to rethink their thoughts on her. And they still have to rethink the relationship they have with her as a character. People who've imprinted on her, people who use her as a basis for their own life. I know people who have really taken Roxy Lalonde in and base their life on her. And a lot of those people now have jumped ship over to June or Vriska, and that's valid because Roxy isn't what they thought. But they can't attack the character for that. They can't attack the writers. They can't attack the arc for that because that's how you're meant to feel. Roxy is her own person, and it wasn't what people were imprinting on her. There's other arcs going on. There's other transgender characters. Homestuck is incredible for having so many transgender characters. Roxy's arc was just to make you upset a bit, but you have to accept her. That's the point. It's very difficult to come out as transgender later in life. Even as a teenager, it's hard. Going through a second puberty is tough stuff. Changing who you are after you've lived for years, like just the thought that other people in your life have pressed ideas onto you, and you're now like that affects you. What people think of you does affect you, and you're just completely defying it. It takes a lot of strength. Maybe I'm not talking about Homestuck anymore. Maybe that's why I chose this topic. Anyway, I'm looking back down at my mouse pad and Dirk Strider's here, so I'm going to spend a few minutes on Dirk. Dirk Strider he did nothing wrong. Okay, Dirk Strider he is the most real fictional character I've ever seen. He feels the most like a trapped fictional character, which all fictional characters are. Very few of them actually take the time to realize it. They're all being pushed and pulled by greater whims of the authors to invoke things on the reader. They're just a tool for the author's intent. The author wants to get a message or an emotion across, and the characters exist only as lifeless puppets for the authors to manipulate the reader's emotions. And Dirk Strider's like, nah, man, I'm gonna kiss some horses. I'm gonna fly spaceship. What's it meant to invoke on the readers? Absolutely nothing. I'm just gonna do it, which I think is it's a whole part of Homestuck too. A lot of people. This ties in with the Roxy thing. Don't worry, this ties in. A lot of people see Homestuck itself as a thing they've imprinted on, a thing they've spent years with, a thing that made them find their love of their life. The thing that made them come out, that made them realize they were gay, that made them realize they were transgender, that made them realize they wanted to be creative, to draw, to write, to program, to anything. Homestuck has a very clearly defined set of themes and moods and feelings, which is weird because Homestuck is just a gigantic, beautiful mess of things that don't make sense, but a lot of it has purpose. A lot of it has characters that invoke emotion and arcs that complete, even if the arc completed like Rose, where the point of the arc is to not have an arc. It's still an arc. It's still characters going from point A to point B with a purpose, an intent, a reason, proper context. And Homestuck 2 wants to throw that up in the air to really mess things up just to see what happens. And I don't think a lot of people understand how it's approaching canon. Like, it's very clearly on the surface level doing metafiction, and a lot of people stop there. A lot of people are like, yeah, I'm not a fan of how Homestuck 2 is doing canon, haha, we're not canon. But it's about Theseus, the ship. Dirk's ship is that's so far been the strongest message in Homestuck 2, which I don't think a lot of people are taking the full meaning of Theseus, which is, it's about the authors, it's about the writers. The ship of Theseus is about how if you replace all the parts of a machine, well, a ship originally, but let's say a machine for modern day, like you're building a computer, switch out the graphics card, switch out the CPU. If you switch out every little piece, one piece at a time, when is the moment that it's a new ship? Or a new, when does your computer become a new ship? When you throw it in the water, is it a ship? No. So, by swapping out the writing team, by swapping out the themes, by swapping out the characters, when does Homestuck become something new? Is it when you just slap the label 2 on it? The moment it's called 2, is it a new thing? Or does it take more than that? Is it going to take a new set of characters? Is it going to take a new set of writers? Homestuck has absolutely changed. from like Act 1 of from Bard Quest, things have changed. It's all essentially the same story, the same canon, the same long threads, the same fan base even, almost, with a few hitches. It's like a organic thing. I think it's incredibly interesting that they're embracing this. A lot of these properties, when they start getting kind of stale, when they get old, when it feels like it's just repetition, they play it up. The Star Wars movies, the new Disney trilogy, it's just basically a rehash of everything that the old movies did. It feels like every action movie now is a remake. Everything from the 80s has come back. We're still sitting through Terminator movies, and they still are not trying anything different. And Homestuck, the very moment it felt like things could have gotten stale towards the end of the original comic, they said, okay, stop, we're rethinking this. Epilogue, Homestuck 2, and it's just totally different. It's 100% new thing. But done so slowly over time that it still feels like a single harmonizing piece of canon. They've just taken very abrupt turns to see how far that can be pushed. Even the characters themselves are deciding, hey, this canon thing, how far can we push it? How far can we push it? If I just do this, if I just do a thing that is completely out of left field, which I've said like 6 times in this episode, if I do a completely random thing, is this still canon? Aradia was doing that in Act 5. She was saying, ba ba bee bop bop beep bop boop, canon can't see this, can you, huh, canon? And yeah. So I should say that I like Homestuck too. That it has pacing issues. 1 update a month, and the updates so far haven't been a whole lot, and they said there aren't going to be any flashes, but I'm still excited. It's still Homestuck. It's still the characters I care about, and it doesn't matter if the characters are doing things I wouldn't have them do, because I'm not the characters. People push a lot of blame onto the writers, which makes sense, because they're the ones doing literally everything. They're creating the world, but there's only so far that author and intent takes you before the characters and the context start kind of doing things themselves. The whole death of the author, like, it's not writing yourself into a corner so much. It's just writing the characters out into a field, and then you can lead the characters to water, but you can't make them drink. Dirk's the horse in this scenario. You can lead Dirk to a new story, but you can't force him to make a canon. He just sort of does his thing. He likes to raise little succulents and look at horse porn. See? Now we're doing it. Now we're talking about Homestuck. This is a podcast. So in the future, I'm going to go into these with a lot more formality. I'm going to have some guests on. Are we wrapping up? No, we're not wrapping up. Train of thought. We're train of thoughting. In the future, I'm going to have some guests on. We're going to have some quips. I might come up with some dumb games. I might come up with some ridiculous setups and parodies. And there's a lot to do with this medium. I've recently been listening to a lot of podcasts. I've been listening to Bim Bam, been listening to Hey Riddle Riddle. This is a shill section of the shill list, the audio shill list. Magnus Archives, Archive 81, Penumbra Podcast. And it's just like, oh, you can do things with just audio. Which I think is, train of thought back to Homestuck, another big thing of Homestuck 2. With the way it's choosing to have pages that aren't in the Homestuck format. It has full narration pages. It has weird, I assume it's going to get into weird photo collage media stuff without having to do weird flash animations, but just different stuff. The way Homestuck is challenging the medium, I'm surprised audio can do that too. And after listening to a bunch of podcasts, I'm like, hey, audio can be metafiction. Is this metafiction? Am I in metafiction? Am I a character? Am I a character in metafiction right now? Who's my author? No. I have ideas planned for stuff like that. You'll see. You'll see. Okay, so let's imagine I'm not sick, which I am. I have a cold, if you can't tell. Let's imagine I have some cool guests on. Let's imagine I'm talking about interesting things. And yeah, I'd call this a podcast. So I think I should end this one short. I think a half hour is good for... Okay, it's not going to be a half hour after I edit it. But I'm going to edit in the theme song. as you can tell, I am very, very professional here. Although, what if I'm not? Or what if I am? What if I am very professional? What if I am a very good podcaster, and I'm doing this episode bad on purpose so that in the future it will look better, and establish a meta-narrative in which I slowly gain artistic skill as the podcast continues. But little did you know, at the beginning I was just faking being bad, so I could have been doing it very good all along. But you'll say, oh wow, you've really grown as a podcaster doing this entire show. Wow, that's great! Incredible! No. There's no, I swear there's no meta-narrative here. Or is there? Alright, folks. Before I turn into Dirk Strider on you, which I am prone to doing, I think we're going to call this an episode. If you enjoyed listening to me rant for half an hour about nothing in particular, I'm sure there'll be a lot more of this in the future. I'm going to record this one episode. I'm going to put it online. I'm going to see. It's definitely going to be on YouTube. I'm going to try to get it on podcasting platforms. Maybe you can find this on the regular Spotify, iTunes, wherever podcasts are sold for free. RSS feeds. And in the future, I'll be able to make this a regular thing. I am moving right now. I'm going to be moving from California to Virginia to live with my boyfriend. And I will finally be able to have a solid schedule of recording time, of quietness in a house. Right now, I'm literally living in the living room of my parents' house. So I don't have all the greatest time in the world to record, or I'd be doing these a lot more often, I'd be streaming a lot more often, which I will do early 2020 once I'm set up in my new house. You can expect this to become a weekly thing once I'm stable. I will make streams have a stable schedule. I will still be streaming all the Pester Quest episodes, and in the future I'll be streaming Homestuck fan content. I want to stream through Vast Error. I want to stream through the Felt Mansion RPG. Maybe Puzzle Stuck. Yeah, and I have a lot of video ideas too. My goal for 2020 is still to make a Homestuck video essay at least once a month. Things like how dream bubbles work, how the retcon worked, what effect Homestuck has had on fiction again, like how I did it at SuckCon, but like a more nicely edited version without getting my head chopped off. Although some of you would like that. I want to do some retrospectives. I want to do a Scott the Woz parody on Homestuck merchandise, or Toby Fox's life, and stuff like that. Nothing mean-spirited. I just want to make some nice, clean Homestuck content, because there's not enough. There's a lot of Homestuck podcasts now, and I'm really grateful for that. But there's just, in general, not a lot of good-spirited Homestuck fan content. There's not enough retrospectives. There's not enough documentaries on the Homestuck fandom. Because there's a lot of speculation on the comic. There's a lot of talking in circles about the characters, which I will certainly do more of. But the fandom it really makes Homestuck. It's like joining a family. And I know there's people that frown upon me tweeting, holding up the idea of everything needs to be documented. We need careful notes on every single thing that happens, but I think there really just needs to be more reaccounts of people's experiences with Homestuck. If you have some stories you want to tell about how you got into Homestuck, or the journey you've had being into it all these years and joining this crazy family of weirdos, then join my Discord and talk to me, and I'll say, oh, hey, that'd make a great episode. You want to come on the podcast, and we can talk for 30 minutes about the time you met your girlfriend at a Homestuck con, or the time you cosplayed to Wendy's and people gave you weird looks. That's great too. That's part of the fandom life. I played my first kiss with a boy was a Dirk Strider during a game of Spin the Fago. That's good stuff. That's good stuff. 20 years from now, people are going to be like, wow, that was a crazy fandom. You kissed Dirk, huh? Wow, Dirk. Ooh, after what he did in Homestuck 2? Oh, no, this was before he murdered Speedbop, the alien from the planet Scoobloo in Homestuck 6. So, it was different times back then. And, yeah. Let's do some last plugs here. You can check me out at Homestuck.info, or on Twitter at Homestuck_info. Or at SkyPlayer37. You can back me on Sponsus at sponsus.org/u/LunaTucker. That's a lowercase u like username. You can just go to sponsus.org and type in LunaTucker. I'll come right up. Sponsus is a Patreon alternative. It's made and ran by a bunch of Homestucks that I used to run with. It's great stuff. I'm not going to paywall any Homestuck content. I may do a side podcast, maybe about non-Homestuck stuff, maybe just about more weird stuff in general. I might do a behind the scenes on some projects I'm working on. I have some fan comics, some fan games. There's definitely going to be Earth 64 content in the far future. That's somewhere. That's Earth 64 is the gaming brand that I do my game development under. I haven't released very many big things, but work in progress. Thanks again to my Sponsus $5 tier user. Oh my god, where's his name? What was his name? His name was Cyberkinetist. Thanks, Cyberkinetist, for being my one fan. If you want to hear your name read at the beginning of the streams, and I guess for at the end too, since I don't have any dollar tier, for $1 you can get your name read at the end of the episode and get access to a special channel on my Discord and a special feed where you can get all the work files for my art that I post. I post the PSDs, I post the Blender files, I post all the middle edits and works in progress. In the future, if I get enough donators, I'm going to be looking into special events, maybe some secret streams, maybe some polls for bonus content. Yeah, you can support me there. You can also check out Redbubble. I have a Redbubble, but over on Redbubble, everything costs 50 times more, and I only make like 1/10 of the money, so it's great. Really supporting creators. I'm going to shill other people, because that's what I do. You should check out Homestuck too, if you haven't already. If you're one of the people who won't read the epilogue, you should read the epilogue. You should give the Homestuck 2 authors money on their Patreon, because I feel bad for people who have to run this crazy fandom. It's madhouse sometimes. They deserve money just for being public figures in this crazy world. But they also deserve money because they make really good comic books, and they write really well. Give Aisha money on Patreon. I'm gonna shill Aisha's Patreon on my podcast because it's the Discord server I use the most, even more than myself, is Aisha's Patreon Discord. It's very chill in there, and she does really good porn. So read her porn. She doesn't do porn. She does romance novels about cyber robot sex and vampires, gay vampires. Well, one's a vampire, one's a thrall. Okay, support people on Patreon that I like. And support me on Sponsus. And listen to future episodes of this show once they exist. Bug me to make more. Send in your ideas for topics so that I can... If people just supply me with a character or topic, I can surely rant for 40 more minutes. Alright. Today's music, I should thank the musician. Today's music was Thank You for Listening to the Album, from the album Herald Bound, which is a solo album by The Rad Guy from the Cool and New Webcomic Bandcamp. Cool and New Webcomic is not a comic I'd shill. Read the first few hundred pages. It starts out strong, and then it gets weird, and it does meta stuff that just falls flat for me. This is an anti-shill for Cool and New Webcomic. Listen to Cool and New Music Team instead. The music's better than the comic. There's a song about me wishing... Okay, no, I'm not going to talk about the Terezi Fornication song. I'm going to end the episode here before we get into that. Thank you for listening. I'm going to go edit the hell out of this thing because I have the sniffles. If you didn't hear me sniffling, it means I did a good job editing. How should I end this? I need a tagline at the end of the episode. I don't have a tagline. Say chill out there, folks. Don't set your status to rancorous. No. Luna Tucker has logged the fuck out. Yeah, that kind of works. That's in Homestuck. Growing up is hard, and podcasting is harder, and no one understands. Let's try spinning. That's good. Yeah, okay. We got it. Is that clean? We got it, Dirk? Wait, I said no meta narratives. Get out of here.